Thanks for listening to the Media People Podcast, lively and insightful chats with the people who power the media industry. I'm your host, Victor Genova. For more episodes, you can go to mediapeople.ca or subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Views expressed by participants are personal. Founded in 1987 by Denise and Allan Jones, the Jones and Jones Group has served many sides of the creative world for Afro-Caribbean and multicultural creators. And at the head of this is today's guest, Jesse Jones. Born in Sudbury and raised in Toronto, Jesse studied marketing and communications at the University of Ottawa. Being in the nation's capital presented a coincidence that Jesse parlayed into an opportunity that would arguably help launch his career. Working at the campus radio station allowed him to apply for press credentials when the JUNO Awards were in town. While at the JUNOs, he networked his way into a sales and marketing job with Hot 89.9, which at the time was a new Ottawa FM radio station focused on hip-hop, R&B, and popular music. From there, Jesse moved into marketing and PR roles with SonyBMG Canada, Youthography, and the Timex Group. And if you're a fan of reality TV and ET Canada, you're probably asking yourself, is it that Jesse Jones? Some of you might already know Jesse as the Season 1 host of The Bachelor in Paradise Canada and ET Canada's Black History Special, Forward, celebrating the future of Black entertainment in Canada. Jesse Jones stops by to chat about his career in the boardroom and his work in front of the camera.
I got to take you back to my parents. It's a family business. Started with my parents who moved here to Canada from Jamaica in the late 80s. And Jones and Jones was actually started as a means to connect those from Afro-Caribbean nations to what they remembered from back home. Right. My parents, I was born in actually Sudbury, Ontario. So that's where my parents first settled up north in Ontario. And, you got a Jamaican couple moving to start their life in Canada in Sudbury, Ontario, one of the coldest places. But the desire after seeing things in the GTA and seeing things up north was to have some representation for people who look like them and came from places like them, who are now settled here in Canada. So the business started by creating experiences for those people. My parents met in the theater back home. So not only were they really stimulated by the business side and the ideals of production and creating experiences, but they were also artists, and trained artists in and of themselves. So Jones and Jones has always fused those two spaces. They started producing theater in Toronto, actually. So would make the trek from up north to downtown Toronto, creating plays and theater in Afro-Caribbean culture. That's very big, right? Theatrical performance. And so that was how Jones and Jones first started. And what happened was these crowds were coming out to this, Afro-Caribbean theater and people were going, wait, like what's going on? There's a lot of people coming to these, and that would evolve later into concert production music. And the crowds got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what happened was you'd have everyone from political parties to organizations and companies saying, you seem to be creating something that is bringing Black communities together. We'd like to partner with you. We'd like to see how we can, work with you in order to speak to these audiences authentically. Right. And so that is what really birthed the whole marketing side of Jones and Jones, because it started with being naturally able to connect to these audiences with authenticity. And then, becomes the conduit or the connection point between brands, between institutions to help them better understand the community they're a part of. So fast forward to now, my mother sadly passed away from brain cancer in December 2020. But for, well over 30 years, Jones and Jones has been that connection point to Black and multicultural and diverse communities in this country. And so, as she got ill, I had stepped into, kind of grabbing the reins and making sure that this continues to do the work that it does, which is be that conduit between culture in Canada and helping organizations and institutions understand that culture and activate within it in a way that makes sense. You saw what 2020 did, right? 2020 kind of turned the world on its head for many, many reasons. We entered into a pandemic, but we also started to, see each other a little bit differently. Jones and Jones was well positioned at that time to be that connection point for organizations who quickly needed to say, yeah, we might not have been recognizing what's going on around us before, but we need to get up to speed. And so, that's the role we play, in boardrooms and places across the country. We help them understand people and reach them where they are.
Jesse, what would be the best way to describe what your parents did in the entertainment industry? Would they be producers? I mean, it sounds like they started off because they started off in theater, would it be fair to say that they were initially thespians that eventually grew into the business side of it? Were they playwrights? Like, how would you classify that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that my parents, I would define them as creators. My grandparents were always organizing things. We have a big, education side to our family. My grandfather was principal. My grandmother was teacher at the school my mom attended back home. But they were also always organizing things within the community. And I think, so my parents seeing that growing up, just like I've seen that growing up, has really defined how I look at things. What's interesting is how we define ourselves, right? So my parents were creators, they were dreamers, and then they were able to see the multiple sides that exist within things, right? I don't think we're one thing. I think we're raised to be taught that we need to be one thing, but quite frankly, we're made up of many layers. And what I am so grateful for growing up is that I was able to see my parents operating their layers: producer, creator, business leader, entrepreneur, right? Winner, failure. Like, I've seen it all. We're a mix of all of those things. And so, but if I had to choose one word, I'd say creators, because I believe that they were able to dream up ideas and make them happen. And my mother was just honored with a lifetime achievement from the JUNO Awards for her contribution and Jones and Jones's contribution to representation of Black entertainment, Black music in this country, and what the business and what she has done for that. And I just, I'm in awe of that because you don't get there without first having the idea and the dream to put into motion. And I saw that growing up all the time. I saw ideas come out and I saw action to develop them. And I think that's like the greatest gift, you can give someone, is just showing them that things are possible. And so, as we continue the journey with Jones and Jones Group, we're in boardrooms every single day, virtually more so now, right? But
Yep.
we're having conversations that are shifting how brands are dealing with the culture around them. And the fact that I'm now in that position to architect and guide the way we see each other, that's because two people came from Jamaica to Sudbury, Ontario, and had a dream, right? So it's a beautiful thing to be able to take this journey another generation. And it's my hope that, I think that's what we all should be doing, is thinking about how are we helping that next wave carry this torch, whatever it is, right? I think that's what our one part of our purpose here is to just each one teach one, and I'm excited and blessed to be carrying this torch and this mission forward.
So you mentioned that you were born in Sudbury and your parents immigrated from Jamaica to there. So why did they pick Sudbury of all places?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, you don't think naturally that was the number one spot on the radar for people leaving Jamaica coming to Canada?
Well, just,
Sudbury, Ontario.
I
Yeah.
mean, new Canadians in general seem to move towards the bigger cities.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So we had my parents had a connection and family in the Toronto area. Had visited before. My mother actually attended Windsor University, so she was very familiar with Ontario. When they finally moved here, though, to start a life, my father was in pharmaceuticals, and his sales territory, was Sudbury, Timmins, Capus Casing. So,
Okay.
so
Basically
that's
like
why.
northeastern Ontario-ish around the
Yeah,
James
right.
Bay
Yeah,
area. Yep.
up north, right? So traveling and in that space, and so uh, that's what led them to Sudbury, and that's where I was born, and my brother were both born there. But we moved to Toronto very quickly. Probably I was 5 when we moved to Toronto, but I think having that, I'll always be grateful for having that time in Sudbury. Um, some of the most defining things I think in my life to date happened there. One that I'll talk to you about was my first skating trip. It was a school trip, and I was a little kid, and my mother was there on the school trip. And this is my first time on skates. Very eager to do it. Very eager to kind of make it around the ice. I didn't know how to skate at the time. Not a lot of kids did. We were learning, but my first journey was a rough one. So I got on the ice and I fell immediately, and then I tried to get up again, and I fell. I fell so many times that day that I threw up. So I'm in the
Oh,
change
jeez.
room now. Yeah, I'm in the change room now, kind of a little defeated, and mom is like, how are you feeling? Do you want to go? And I said I didn't, and she said, well, listen, we're here. You can do this. Take your time. And I went back out on that ice and found my way around. I held on to the side a little bit. I got a few glides there on the ice, and did my thing. I fell a couple more times, but I made it around, and that was, I think, probably one of the most defining moments for me. Because it just that explains the relationship that I had with my mom. She was very much supportive, very much would tell you anything is possible, but she'd give you room to do your thing and to find the learnings in the experience. And I'm always grateful for that. And it's one of those things that I'll just always hold dear. I take that with me all the time. We fall a lot.
Uh-huh.
Any of us have dreams, right? Aspirations, goals, for sure we do. At some point in our lives, though, like I feel like society does a really good job of knocking those out of you. They're too big. They're too lofty. I had my brother and I were at my mother's bedside as she passed away, and I can tell you, man, like to be in that moment, it's something you can't explain, but I feel like it was a gift because it showed me, the full circle of life. And so as you care for someone in end of days, you start to realize what matters. And so I hold on to those experiences like the skating trip, because we're going to keep falling, but we have one go on this ride. And I feel like we deserve to realize the things we want to do, the things we dream. If My mother always told me too, if the dream is in your head and the idea is in your head, it's yours to see lived out. You've been gifted the idea. The only thing now is for you to take it further. And so, as I talk to you about kind of the history coming up and what Jones and Jones means to this country, to a community of people and generations of people, it also means, putting dream into action, and something I believe we all are meant to see and feel in our lives.
So how do you get past that little voice in your head that everyone's got, just sitting there saying, oh, it's a dream, pass on it, just that bit of self-doubt that you've got to get past? Like, how do you overcome that?
I think you have to tune out the noise, Vic. Can I say Vic? Is that okay?
Oh, by all means, go
Vic?
for it. Yeah.
Victor, I feel like we're,
No, it's all
I
good.
should be going to Vic before I ask you, right? It's like our first time
No,
chatting here, and I
please,
feel all
please.
comfortable. I appreciate the way you're carrying this conversation, man. It's very, very dope. How do you get past the noise? Another gift. I'll keep talking about family because it's important to me. I've always felt confirmed at home first. Growing up as a kid, I grew up in a very culturally rich home, very proud home, right? Um, it was very much about preparing us for the world we were going to go out to face. But I never felt like I wasn't confirmed at home first. I think that was also a gift because I didn't need to seek confirmation in others. Yeah, you need affirmation, and sure, when you're trying to get things happening, your fate is in other people. But if I didn't get the right answer from someone, it didn't. It disappointed me, but it never put me to bed. You know what I mean? And
I know what you mean.
I think that's the thing we have to get over. Social media is built on affirmation and confirmation from people we don't know.
Yes. How
So
many times have
so
you been on Instagram and you've seen someone and you'd be like, look at all the traveling you're doing. Do you have a day job? And then you look at
right,
yourself and go, well, how can I get to that level? I can't see that unless I quit my job to have the time to do that. But if I quit my job, I don't have the money to do that. And that
100%.
gets into your head pretty quickly.
100%. But you know what? None of us know each other's story. We
That's very
know
true.
we know aspects of the story. We know the highlight reel, right? Social media is built around highlight reel because it's built around making you stay engaged. But what also happens here is if you're only getting one sliver of the story, you're also missing out on the hills and valleys, right? You're also missing out on context. That's another thing that I think is missing right now, is context, nuance, right? What is in behind what I'm seeing here? Sure, I'm seeing the travel and I'm seeing the trips. What did this person do to get there, right? What did they give up? What have they gone through? These are not the things that social media shows you. So for me, back to your question about how do you get by that voice, I think you just have to um, know what's real. Okay. If you sit and watch highlight reels of people's lives every day, that's what is going to be real for you. We need more context. We need to understand and speak to more people and understand the journey. That's why I think this podcast is really good because you're unpacking journeys and it's from different people, different walks of life, different experiences. But if I take in a multitude of info from different sources and different people, I'm going to kind of hear some things that jive for me and some things that don't, but I'm still going to hear them. And then I'm going to be able to kind of figure out, all right, I like a little of that. Let me pull a little from that. And I like a little from this. And I think we need more of that because the voice in your head that's saying, hey, that idea you have, yeah, it's too crazy. That's just like doubt. If something lights you up, I think that's how you have to lead. If it keeps coming up in your head and it keeps coming up in your thought, and you would do it for free, that's the other thing too. Like I think it's hard to chase things for money because money to me, the older I get, the more I realize is it's actually not the money, it's the relationships and the contacts that will bring you to places of opportunity, right? That is the currency, how you treat people, what your name brings in rooms you're not in.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
you only get to that level of currency by the energy you transfer every day. I mean, we might be getting deep here, but this is what I believe.
Oh no, it's all good. It's all good. And thank you for the kind words on the podcast. I'm trying to, my whole format has been like a little bit of James Lipton, a little bit of gentrified Howard Stern, and a bit of Kevin Smith mixed together. Because I
Yeah,
think they're
man.
some of the best storytellers out there. I know you were only 5 or 6 at the time, but when you moved from Sudbury to Toronto, were you old enough to encounter any sort of culture shock from moving to a smaller town? I wouldn't say a smaller town, but a smaller city to one of the biggest cities in North America? Or did that just go right over your head because you were so young back then?
It's a great question. I have always been in rooms where I wasn't the majority. We started to see more people like us, obviously, when we moved to Scarborough I guess that would be like the um, 80s, and it was just up and coming, and young families were moving there, and you start to see a lot more diversity. Um, I think for me, I've always said that it was a gift. I was grateful for growing up in Sudbury in my early days because I think it set a tone for me. I had the cultural upbringing at home, but then when I went to school, I was not in the majority in terms of my background. And so that didn't matter. I was just existing as a young person in class. I was getting involved in all of the things that were my Canadian experiences to be involved in. I was born here, you know. Um, but what that Sudbury upbringing did for me is it prepared me for what Canada was going to be like ultimately, which is you're going to move around in rooms where many of the people there and the majority of them look different from you. So that's why I think it was like a real gift that I had that balance of like this cultural home upbringing, my early days in Sudbury, then transferring to like Toronto, which is now giving you that cultural kind of influx. Like it was all a beautiful mix that allowed me to navigate Canada as a a young person, young adult into adulthood. Prepared me for how to deal with different types of people in different rooms and different and cultures, right? To the point now where every day, whether it's through Jones and Jones from an agency perspective or me and my personal pursuits, uniting culture and bringing it together while standing up for and representing where I come from is my desire, because we're not going to get anywhere as a country if we don't see, hear, and understand each other, right? And so I'm really grateful for the journey and for where I came from, because it helped me see different sides of this province and this country to now be in a position where I can continue to like bring those worlds together. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Something you've got in common with some of my recent guests. Literally, you are the third person out of the last 4 episodes to have started working at the Gap. That was maybe their first or second part-time job. So I know you've also had a paper route, and I
Yes.
want to talk about that because we kind of half jokingly say that's usually someone's first job in media. But
Yeah.
tell me, okay, but tell me first what attracted you to the Gap, because I'm starting to, and every guest I've had that's worked at the Gap, or they started at Old Navy and were promoted to the Gap, which I didn't
Right.
even know was a thing, they
Yeah.
have waxed poetically about their time there and what it prepared them for. So, what was your experience like working for the Gap?
And I think that's just such a unique aspect of this. I actually was looking up at the past guest as I was preparing for the conversation, and I saw that there was other reference to the Gap. I was like, I hope we get to talk about it because I have my own version of my story too. Listen, I am forever grateful for that. Gap was the brand that when I was in I think this was high school. So this was like early high school. This was my first real gig. Gap was the brand. Everyone wanted the hoodie, the
Yes, the hoodie.
logo hoodie, right? It was the thing. It was and I went to a Catholic school, so we had uniform, but like I was like very preppy, and how
Yep.
I'd rock my look and stuff. So I liked Gap. Like they spoke to, what I was about. If we had days where we could like, come in non-uniform, like I'd come in Gap khakis, and that whole vibe was a thing where when I was growing up. So I was like, oh, it'd be cool to work here. And I went and applied. And, just the learnings I got there, understanding retail, understanding positioning of a brand, seeing how they, folded clothes, set up clothes, closed tills, back room versus, out in the front of the store, uh, product development, like all of these things I was seeing early. And then I also was witness to the pop culture effect that the Gap was having, right? And I think it also upped my status at my school, right? Like,
It
I was
does.
like, it was like people were like, oh, he works at the mall over at Gap, and they'd be in the mall, right? This is the other thing too. It's like a lot of kids would like be at the mall, hanging out, but I was there on shift. I was working, right? And that's kind of like how I was, right? I love to hang out and have fun too, but I was like, I want to go work there. I want to be on the inside. I want to have, learnings, and I want to be the brand that I'm loving and, really incorporated. So I learned a lot from there. I always used to love sales, because I was able to just connect with people over what they were looking for, and then understand kind of what they needed, get their vibe, and then be able to suggest things otherwise, right? So I learned about sales from the Gap, learned about people, and being able to uh, identify their needs fairly quickly, right? Because if someone walks in, you have to engage with them. You got to make them feel comfortable, not too pushy. I was never too pushy. I was more about, I'm here for you when you need me, and letting people know information that would add to their experience. Greeting was always a fun part for me too, like greeting at the front, setting the tone for what people, these are just things that I didn't think about at that age, but I was naturally just doing them because that's how that's what I wanted to do, what I wanted to bring to the gig. And quite frankly, it's probably based on my experiences coming up and seeing Jones and Jones, right? I saw production. I saw how people were welcomed into a space. I saw how people were um, entertained and made to feel comfortable, right? So I think I was naturally just kind of pulling on these innate things that I had experienced through osmosis growing up around my parents, and the things that were being created. And so I'll always have positive, thoughts around the Gap. They really helped me develop my first corporate experience, and just seeing how things flowed from there. So I have a soft spot for that brand.
The sales aspect of it, did you gravitate towards that because you were already a naturally competitive person, or did that role make you realize that you're a competitive person? Because I know in retail they're still throwing some sort of quota on the board, and they're ranking the different employees, going, "Hey, they sold this much merchandise today, or this shift versus this person," and so forth. Like, how did that experience shape you?
Love this question because I've never been one who deals well with being told to push more sale. I've always been one who would rather your experience. If you came into the store and I was able to have some time with you and you didn't buy anything, but we had an exchange that was positive, and set you in a good space, I was good with that. And I was still, leading in sales back then as a high school kid, because that was my approach. It's always been my approach to business development, even to this day. You know, I will have conversations, go out for a dinner because I'm interested in this person. Can we do opportunities together? Can we build together? For sure. But what are you about? Where is your head? What are you thinking about? What do we vibe on a level? Because if we vibe on a level, we're going to be able to do a lot more things together. And so if we go back to the gap, for me, it was not a pushy sale. Yet it got me the results I wanted because I was able to create a relationship with people. You might have come in and you didn't do any business with me, but you come back again and be like, hey, I'm ready now. And I think that was just me understanding who I was. I never did well in environments where they were more about the sale than they were about the service. That's how I approach all my initiatives, anything I'm doing private, like personally with me as Jesse or me as Jesse and Jones and clients. I'm always dealing from a place of service. It's a big energy difference between what you get working with Jones and myself versus, other places. I legitimately make sure that our teams come from that place when we're working together.
So the social side of business seemed to really attract you from your time at Gap. Does this kind of explain why you went into why you decided to study marketing and communications at the University of Ottawa?
100%. And that's another defining, time for me was, my time spent over at Ottawa U. I continue to work with the alumni team there as well, as it relates to engaging prospective students, and I'm going back and helping, with alumni weekends and things like that. It was a really defining point in my life, leaving Toronto, big city, going to a big city as well, not big like Toronto, but it had its culture and it had its appeal. I was actually supposed to be attending the University of Waterloo, and then late I was already accepted and was going to go there, and then I was going to play basketball there as well. I played throughout high school and got recruited, and then I got some interest from Ottawa U and started to look into that. And then went there and was like, you know what, this could be interesting. And then I saw the communications program and was really attracted to it. And then, at the time you could get, I'm sure it's changed now, but that was when you could start to get, bursaries and things there if you were a student athlete. And, so the whole thing became really attractive to me. And I just went with the gut feeling of like, I think this Ottawa thing is going to be a good look. And it ended up being just a really amazing experience being in a city that is very government based, having that communications background, just in general, like from, the ground up, understanding, what that looks like on, multiple platforms, understanding media. My favorite class of my whole time at Ottawa U was pop culture and the way we would talk about and analyze media messages.
All the Marshall McLuhan stuff.
Oh, come on, man. Like I couldn't get enough of that class because Peter Hodgins, shouts out to Peter Hodgins. I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but I want to give him a lot of props because he gave his students in his class a lot of room to explore what was happening real time around us, come into class and formulate our thinking around it. And it really set a tone for me in terms of how I engage with media, how I distill it, how I step back from it. So really positive experience when I think back to my time at Ottawa U and that communications program in particular, because whether you're going into journalism or not, it will shape you in terms of how you look at the landscape of any area you're going into and what role you play within it. So I got to big up Ottawa U for sure.
Well, it also launched your entertainment career, we could say, because
Yeah.
you started off as a host at the campus radio station. So, what was your show about?
Yeah, the show was called What's the Deal? And it was a show that a good friend of mine, Scott Bride, and I co-hosted. And we came up with the concept because we just wanted to know, like, what's the deal, on a range of topics. It was a weekly show. We would have a DJ, Trevor Mason, who is still in Ottawa doing incredible experiences and events out there. We had a mixed DJ, so we'd always have, like, a portion of the show where we're just playing like really good music, old school, new school, funk, jazz, like hip hop, like we just blend everything. But then we'd have guests on the show who we just chat with on hot topics. We'd also like interview up and coming artists, people who were doing things in the space in Ottawa. So yeah, it was kind of like a talk show and then, a music show. And we chat about, culture and arts going on in the city. And so, yeah, that show was cool because, I learned about producing radio and getting the guests together, and we were able to bring in high school interns and have them participate. And you really, again, the communications background, right? It just made sense. And then I think it was my last year at Ottawa U, the JUNO Awards were in Ottawa. And this was right around the time when Hot 89.9 FM, which is a station out there right now, was coming into the market. They hadn't been there. This was the first time you were going to get a station of this kind, pop culture, playing music that you typically hear on a lot of Toronto stations, right? But so this was exciting. And I remember the JUNOs were coming in. I submitted our show for access to all the media, like accreditation. I was like, yeah, we're media. I want to be in there and I want to be interviewing and getting access. And sure enough, we put in the request and we got granted. So I'm rolling up as a student to the JUNO Awards press access VIP events.
Jesse, this is a perfect example of that saying that the answer is always no unless you ask for it.
100%, man. Like, I don't even think Scott was able to make it. So I ended up going alone. I'm a university student and I'm rolling up to all the VIP stuff. And I got into this event and someone told me that, I got to give a shout out to Rob Mize, big radio guy in Canada. And he was heading up Hot 89 at the time. And someone made mention, that's Rob Mize. He's the, new GM of the station and blah, blah, blah. I beeline it over to him, introduce myself, say that, at the time I was like, hey, I want to get into marketing for the station or something on air. Maybe, I've got a show. It's called What's the Deal? Elevator pitch. Right. And, he's like, I think he was just kind of stunned. He's like, who is this kid? and why are you telling me that I need to hire you? And then I think it was just, look, I said, maybe I can get a card or whatever. I think he gave me a card. I think he was just kind of shocked that I had the balls to walk up to him. And because he was around a lot of people, this was JUNOs, right? It's a big deal in music. And I ended up getting a position over there in the sales marketing, department, and spent some time there, cutting my teeth and understanding radio on another level, right? Because now I went from campus to now this is prime time, and you're seeing the inner workings of it. And so I think life is a series of experiences, right? Nothing stays the same for forever. And I think we have to be wired to pivot. I've always been comfortable with like understanding when it's time to make a leap or like try something different to take me to the next thing. And I think I've always seen that just by growing up in an entrepreneurial family. If you're not comfortable pivoting, you're dead.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so we've seen that in the past few years. Like I almost see it as a gift because I think I was I don't think you can ever be prepared for a pandemic, but you know, I was ready for a pivot because I've been pivoting all my life. And I don't mean pivoting, meaning pivot from like completely away from what you would be. No, I just mean change, right? Adapting. You might not be, it's not like you're going in a different direction. You're just making a bit of a right turn here and going, like how Waze tells you sometimes, right?
Yep.
This is right. Waze is still going to the same destination, Victor, but it's taking you right and then another right and then a left so that you get around stuff. So yeah, man, that decision to kind of go to the JUNOs are coming. I could have just been like, yeah, I want to go watch it. I was like, no, I'd like to get on the inside. I got a radio show here and it's a credible show. I am media. So let me submit and see if they will accept it. And they did. So now I'm like, okay, level 2. It's like video games.
Yes,
Level
that's a
2,
great analogy. Yes.
right? Now go to the media things, right? Oh my gosh, do, right? Like you're like, how do I do this? Where do I navigate? What? Go and present yourself. Okay. Who's Rob Mize? Okay, let me go talk to him, right? And then boom, 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 you end up at Hot 89 out of university for your first gig to pay you some dollars as a fresh kid out of school. Like you gotta just be ready to pivot and you have to believe in what you're offering to the world.
How does SonyBMG Canada tie into this? Like, at what point were you interning there?
Yeah, so I had to eventually come back to Toronto, leaving Ottawa, because the industry that I wanted to be in wasn't in abundance there, right? So while I'm getting this great experience over at the radio station at Hot, I need to come back to Toronto and cut my teeth and build myself there. It's the biggest market in the country and a lot runs through it. And that was my home. So I ended up relocating back and submitting and getting an internship at SonyBMG. Ivan Barry, one of the most influential people in Black music here in Canada, hip hop specifically. He was heading up the A&R department at the time, and my mother and him had known each other for many, many years, and I was asked to submit my resume for potential internships. And so I went in and interviewed and eventually got a gig there. And I started out as an intern. So I literally went in and said, I'll do anything. Because at that time, coming up at that time in an industry, wanting to break into marketing, I knew that I wanted to get into like marketing and the entertainment industry and just kind of unite all of the things that I've been passionate about, right? And to work at a record label was like that was a really good gig in the worlds I wanted to get into. So, to be able to start there as an intern, I said I'd do anything. And a lot of the work that I was doing at the time was packing boxes of CDs, reorganizing, spaces, going on coffee runs, taking notes in meetings. I would cover reception. That was the job I wanted to do most. When the receptionist was leaving on break, I wanted to cover reception, and I would let everybody know that. All my people I was reporting to, I would say, if you can ever get me there, I wanted to get there. Why? Because you see everyone.
Yes. Like
You see,
I completely agree. It's probably one of the best passive networking opportunities anyone could ask for.
listen, you're bang on with that, man. Like bullseye. You see everyone. You see the president. You see everyone down to, cleaning crew, whoever, but you also see all of the talent that was rolling through. Wyclef Jean, right? Chris Brown, like whoever was coming into town, you saw them. and they were walking past you, and sometimes people would just, start to acknowledge you, right? And and that pleasant smile, that, hey, how you doing? The way I would conduct myself up at front desk was like, people, they don't think about roles at gigs. Okay, they don't think about roles. The receptionist role is like, it is the most important role, I think, because this person sees everything, knows everything, and keeps it all moving. They're the first touch point when someone comes into the business. So when I went up there, I was like, I took it super seriously, right? Always smiling, being pleasant. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to SonyBMG. Thanks for coming in. How can I help you? Like, it also gives you the list of who everybody is in the company, right?
Yes, that's true.
So you know who everyone is, you know the names of all the people in the department you might want to work in. Like, there was a lot of information that was there for me. I could have not asked for that, right? I'm always looking for, like, how can I access more information? How can I connect more? And that was a gig there. And then I do whatever, but I kept asking to get into meetings. And Nicole Chrysostom Murray, ironically enough, we work together now on the Jones and Jones side. So full circle, and her daughter interns for me.
Oh,
but
damn, look at that.
Yeah, Nicole Chrysostom Murray was the first person who said, yeah, you know what? Why don't you come into these meetings and start taking notes? That was the game changer, because then I kind of moved into more coordinator role, and that set me up for, I was in there as an intern suggesting things. The audacity, right? I'm taking notes, right? She didn't tell me I could talk. She said, come in and take notes. But like, I got in, and a few times as we're talking about marketing plans and ideas, I'm like, hey, what if the street team did this and they went to these places? Because a lot of people hang out there, blah, blah, blah. And I just take a chance, and then it would land, and like, I'd be like, whew, okay, I'm not getting fired today. But, it's access. You have to ask for what you want. You got to, like, try to just ask. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So I got into those meetings. And now I'm getting experience now. I'm now up from packing boxes. Now we're making suggestions. And then that turned into more of a coordinator role, which is the reason I was able to get into my first marketing agency experience at Youthography. And that was another shift in the career trajectory, because now, I'm in an agency that speaks to youth marketing, and is probably the only agency that is doing that at that time. So they're connecting with brands on another level. This is like when sampling and grassroots marketing was like just coming in. And I was able to go there and with my experience from SonyBMG and my Jones and Jones innate experiences, talk my way into getting a coordinator role with them. And I'm forever grateful for that, because this agency was doing research and like focus groups with teens, and it was dynamic and it was raw, and they were creating marketing plans out of that. And it was really interesting for me and stimulating for me. And I gotta, I'm forever grateful, because I think I went in there and sold them on hiring a guy without that type of experience, but with the raw capability. And I'm grateful for that. Jeff Roach, Rick Tremblay, Max Valaket, Rayla Gutman, Naomi Olson, Christina Bedame-Verderman. Those people were my first kind of managers. John Price, Kevin Goodman. These people, really shaped me in my early 20s, as I was like, that was such a fundamental experience, and just I'm so grateful for it, because it really did help me cut my teeth and learn about agency, learn about marketing and brands and clients and just everything. So like I said, you got to know when it's time to like make a move if you want to keep progressing.
Okay, so Youthography, how did that job find you, or how did you find that job? Because based on everything you've said about SonyBMG, it seemed like you were basically in the company you wanted to be at, and you were clearly growing from there? Like you said, you started by packing boxes and now all of a sudden you were in meetings taking notes and you'd moved your way into a coordinator role. So what was so enticing about Youthography that it made you reconsider your time at SonyBMG?
There was an opportunity that came about for a role that, for a brand actually. So I was looking for jobs at the time, and I think what was it? It was Fido Mobile, I guess it was at the time. So I think this was Bell. This was with Bell, and it was a job to be it was a coordinator role, but you'd be overseeing this brand, and they wanted someone who knew about music, art, culture, entertainment, who could bring that to the role. I apply for that gig because it brings together all my worlds, right? I end up interviewing, and at the last, I'm about to get the gig, and apparently, um, they they go internally, rather than bringing someone in externally. But they tell me, we work with an agency who I think you need to meet. The agency is Youthography. I go in there and I say, listen, you guys know what the scenario is. Client wanted to hire me. They are going internally, but you guys got to hire me because actually this is probably where I'm meant to be. And that's how it all came about.
From there, you moved on to the Timex Group. And I didn't even realize that the Timex Group had these brands that you were working on under their umbrella. Like they own them. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. We've got
Nautica.
Echoes in there as well. Is it TX? The other one?
Yep. That was an in-house brand. It was like a very high-end brand for them at the time. Yeah.
And you were handling PR for them. So how did that role come about? And what did your job there entail?
Again, that just, that opportunity, came into my periphery, and they were looking for someone, again, they were looking for someone who understood lifestyle culture and, again, these elements that I had always been working in, the arts, the entertainment, building together PR and marketing, and be able to kind of create experiences around that and get the brand attention at the same time. And so they were looking for a brand management position that leveraged a lot of media and a lot of PR. These are all experiences and worlds I was able to amass, through my journey to that point. So I made the leap and suggested myself for put my name in the hat for that gig and ended up getting it. And I was sad to leave the Youthography scenario, but I also knew that I wanted to grow and get that brand side experience. And yeah, was able to get in there and really cut my teeth on learning like budgeting and product development and working with retailers like the Bay and Target at the time, and just all these major retailers that you have to sell through product to a year in advance. So that, like, this is how things were back then, right? Things are changing now because you now have got online, and the retail space and how people buy is changing every single day. But I was able to get in and learn a lot of these things, and in my time there, product selection, going to market meetings in New York and around the world where you're seeing product and you're able to pick and select your assortment that's going to be for this specific retailer versus this one. Like it was a lot of the learning I would never have gotten if I didn't take that job on. And it allowed me to think and see the marketing space from a different level. Seeing all the different parts that play a role, why you have to be in touch and very intimate with sales, and how they move and how the planning process works. So again, really grateful for that time, because it set me up for everything I'm doing today, right? When you go back into business for yourself, and you take the learnings you've gotten along the way, it's allowed me to navigate the world in a different way. Had I not had those experiences, I don't think I would have, um, been able to be sensitive to certain scenarios as I navigate where I'm going now.
So speaking of past learnings to assist you with your role at the Timex Group, did you find yourself reaching back to your time at Gap, even for like small things going, oh, okay, you know what? This worked when I was working the retail floor at Gap. Maybe I should be keeping it in mind when I'm dealing with retailers now. And we're talking about maybe how they're going to present a Timex brand or product on their sales floor.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, I was in a brand manager role there. So there's only so many things I was able to like influence in terms of, how the retailer does what they do. But yes, for sure. That's just one of the, see, going through the journey, sometimes I would wonder, am I on the right track? But then it's only when you're looking back, you're like, wow, like that really did connect to this and that connected to this. And I've always been about following like what I'm passionate about when I make choices. So is this like in the realm of my passions and interests? If so, yes. Will it, like I told you about the whole, when you're on ways, sometimes you're going to the same place, but sometimes it's going to take you on a turn this way and that way. But eventually the destination is the same, going in the same area. And so, yeah, I think definitely, being in the role at Timex Group and working with the big retailers, yes, of course you pull on that historical information of the time at the Gap and just even when I would roll into or walk into retailers, I would be conscious of who's greeting me and how. And
Did you ever go undercover when you did that? Or did
yeah,
they? Okay,
you'd
you always
always
go
shop.
undercover.
Yeah, you'd always, yeah, not always, but like I'd always just walk in. Know what? It's not like everyone knew that I was from Timex and overseeing the Nautica brand and the Echo brand, and like, it's not like everyone would know that on shift. Some people would recognize me, but other times I would just walk and see how things are being kept and all of that. Yeah, to this day, Victor, I walk malls just to get a temperature check on what people are rocking, like what they're wearing and like just how kids are interacting with stores. I just go, I shop too, right? But like I'll just go in and like just get a sense of like what's going on in culture right now. Cause you can always get a good sense from going to the malls and seeing how like, you know, moms and daughters are shopping, like what's happening. I'm very stimulated by that. I think when you do that every once in a while, you really do get a sense of like what's going on and how culture is moving by it. Malls are a great place to do that.
So, Jesse, people listening to this right now are probably going, Jesse Jones, is that Jesse Jones from television? Because you've had a couple of big forays into broadcast. So let's start first with season 1 of The Bachelor in Paradise. How did that hosting role come about?
Ah, man, Bachelor in Paradise is crazy. So my mother passes away in December 2020, but in November of 2020, I did I had a small spot on a show called Employable Me, and the show is about employing people who identify as they have a disability, and the show is about finding them jobs in everyday companies and corporations and just showcasing the companies that are doing this and the learnings they're all having. And it's a beautiful show. And producer friend of mine was on it, and he said, you know what, Jesse, I think it'd be great to have you on as one of the kind of mentors for this this episode in one of the series. I was like, yeah, this is cool. And they also our head office, Jones and Jones, is a storefront space in downtown Brampton, and we use the space for shoots at different times. So sometimes people will come in and they'll, it's kind of like a canvas that they can recreate and use for shoots. And so they also came to shoot some of this at our space. On the team of production for the show was one of the, who later I found out was part of a production company that was bringing, Paradise into Canada. And so after this Employable Me shoot's done, he and I are just vibing. We're just connecting. And I said, hey, I've played in this world before. I know you guys, if you ever need the space and, for something else, let me know. Here's my contact. I'll connect with you over on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, like let's just stay in touch. I've played in this TV world as well. I've got some, concepts and ideas, and have also been, camera side as well. And he's like, yeah, we should definitely keep in touch. And so we did. I end up coming back from laying our mother to rest in Jamaica. I'm on 2-week quarantine because that's what you had to do at the time. This is early pandemic. And I get an email saying, hey, Jesse, we met on the shoot. I just was looking on your LinkedIn and it says you're a connector of worlds. And, we're looking for someone who could connect us to potential host opportunities for this upcoming show we've got. I'll have to send you an NDA before I can talk about it, but, wondered if you knew any people you could recommend. I said, yeah, I know a ton of people in this industry who are, never been on, the major shows. So they would be fresh faces, can totally send the stuff over. Please send over the NDA, blah, blah, blah. But I also said, here's a link to a show called The Drive. We got 2 seasons out of it. It's The Drive is a concept that I created, and we got 2 seasons on Global, and it's like coffee and cars with comedians, but or like carpool karaoke, but not those. It's like me picking regular everyday people up, and on the way to dropping them off, we have a bit of conversation. And the whole thing around it is that we don't necessarily need anybody in the car to be right or wrong. It's just like this free flow of dialogue as I'm dropping them off. And, there's some laughter, there's some depth, there's like, there's real people and real talk, right? So I send him the link of that and I say, I'm not saying I'm the right person for this, but I'd love you guys to see it. You're a production company, so maybe I might be right for other things. They get back to me. He gets back to me, says, I just sent your link around to the team and we actually would love to audition you. It's for the show that's coming in first time in Canada, and it's for the Bachelor franchise, and it's Bachelor in Paradise Canada. And I'm like, sorry, excuse me, come again. And so that's how that all kind of came to be. It was this organic meet in a completely separate area. And then me throwing my name into the ring for something I actually didn't know what it was, to then have interest. And it ends up in me hosting season 1 of a global hit brand of TV show. And that that set the tone for a lot of the stuff that, that I'm doing in that space right now. I ended up, doing work with ET Canada because I was visible, and I got an opportunity, and it, I was able to do something with it. And I was very grateful to the whole team over at Bachelor in Paradise Canada to come in and introduce a show to Canada. And I mean, look, the marketing, mass communications program at Ottawa U, man, has been paying off, in a number of different ways, right? But it was it was a next level, right? And I don't get that gig if I don't kind of throw my reel into I didn't even know why I did that. It's just like, why wouldn't you?
Well, probably because you've got a history of putting your hand up and going, why not me? And so eventually, as you grow within your career, the opportunity you're putting your hand up for is just going to keep getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. And then that's how you end up on television. So it just goes back to what you're saying. You might as well ask for it. What's the worst? They say no?
Facts. And I think, like, honestly, why not me? Why not you? Right? Like, why not you? You asked a question earlier that really was, I'm still thinking about it, is what do you think, like, what's that voice that comes in and says, like, not you, right? We're telling
Yeah.
ourselves not you every day, no?
Yes, we
Like,
are.
we're telling ourselves not you. And it's not anyone else. It's us going, not you. Not you. You don't deserve that. That to me is wild. I think the biggest gift we can give ourselves is, why not you? Yes, you. Try. The worst that can happen is it doesn't happen, but you tried. Um, they put people in the Hall of Fame. They put people in the Baseball Hall of Fame for hitting the ball 3 out of every 10 times they're at bat. The
That's an interesting
best,
statistic.
the best people in baseball, the best, the people that you hail and say they are, oh my goodness, what they've done with the game. They connect on the ball 30% of the time. If I got 30% in school, would I be hailed as the best ever? You see, the thing about baseball is, to hit 3 times, you have to come up to bat with the mentality that you're going to connect after missing 7 times. So it's like this incredible um, reflection of life, where in life, though, we get told you got to be 10 out of 10, man. Like, you have to be 10 out of 10. Are you not 10 out of 10? You mean you made a mistake? What, you swung on that really hard, man. You didn't even get close to the ball. And this way that we position success, right? In school, you got to get 100%. Or if you don't get 100% in school, man, like, I don't know if you're going to be a success at life. But then in sport, you get into the Hall of Fame if you're like a 300 batsman. So, and I got to give credit to Tony Robbins, because I picked up on this when I was listening to some Tony Robbins stuff. Is this whole baseball analogy, but I've run with it since then, because it's real. It's all about mindset. You're gonna miss 7 times, but you have to get up the 8th time to feel like you didn't miss 7 times. You got to brush that off. You have to brush that off. This life thing, it's like a video game. You got to be prepared to come back to make it to the next level, right? You might run out of, a few opportunities here, but you can always restart the game and play again. And so that's kind of what I go with. It's like, yep, struck out on that one, but you know what? There's another at bat somewhere. And when I get up to bat, I'll be ready. Damn, struck out again. All right, cool. What happened? Oh, I saw a pitch I didn't know, but now I know it. So add that to the arsenal, come back up and be prepared. 3 times out of 10, you only have to connect on one. So why not me? Let me send my reel in here. And, like, sure, I might suggest hosts and other people they like better, but maybe they'll like this. And then I end up on a national TV show to really take the opportunity to show my skills that I've known I had. It's just Canada and I didn't know. Now they know. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah.
dream. It feels dreamy, but it's really not if that's how we approach every day. You gotta believe in yourself.
Well, you're auditioning for their attention. That's exactly the country's attention.
100%. I'm in a role now where every day, through either Jones and Jones or my personal pursuits, I am about uniting Canada. We're in a time right now where we're all in our different, sections, yelling across at each other, whether that's politically, culturally, right? It's a very noisy time. My ultimate goal, beyond the business stuff, beyond the personal pursuits, is that we all start to recognize each other a bit more and we all become more sensitive to each other, because the only way we move forward as a country and as communities is together. It's not going to happen if we are just in our corners yelling across at each other. So I'm about unifying, and to have the opportunity to be in front of people on a national scale every week on a national a media platform and TV channel. Like, yes, I was on for Bachelor in Paradise, and the show and has all its range of drama and beyond that. But beyond that, I was like, this is an opportunity for me to be in front of Canadians with my energy, right? There's no other way I wouldn't have had an opportunity to do that in any other way up until that point. And so what that did was, it's like, oh, he can perform in this scenario. All right. Now people see the energy, they get tagged, they come back to my Instagram, they learn about Jones and Jones. When would they ever hear about it? You know what I mean? So it's
No, I know what you're saying. There's a huge ripple effect there.
There's tons of ripple, and it only happens because I had two parents who were brave enough to come to this country and set up shop, right? They were brave enough to come to this country and say, why not them, right? And create space for people and opportunity to connect. And so, yeah, man, this all really does tie together.
I want to do a quick comparison between the two major programs you've been on, Bachelor in Paradise Canada and ET's Black History Special. For The Bachelor, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're really building your dialogue and reacting to what happens with the contestants. But as the host of the Black History Special, did you get an opportunity to shape that content?
With that content, there were producers and people that build the show, but yes, like, we're always talking about how it's delivered, and I'm able to kind of come into the studios on the ET set and bring myself to it authentically. They're very different types of shows, right? Very different format. So both had their benefits, and it was actually interesting to be going to the ET set after having done Bachelor in Paradise, just because while they're both TV and while they're both hosting, they're almost two very different types of hosting, right? And so yeah, just a real blessing to have those opportunities and to be able to exist on multiple media platforms, right? I'm not like with one exclusively. I'm able to help and collaborate with whichever ones have an opportunity that I fit for and that they fit for me at the time. That's a beautiful thing too, right? I'm able to maintain my personal brand and bring that to each of these scenarios, and that's like a dream come true. That's stuff I've been thinking about since the early days of this journey we've been talking about, and to be able to be doing it now in a way that feels completely authentic to me is a blessing and a gift.
So what does your typical day look like? Because you don't seem like someone who has to submit to the typical 9 to 5.
I love how you put that, and you're right. But that took time, right? I've always known that I wanted my days to be my own. I'm very big on energy. I start my days this morning. I was up super early for my session with my trainer at the gym. I invested in a personal trainer for the first time in my life this year during the pandemic. And so I just thought, like, as we're going through this wild time, I want to spend and invest in my body and my mind, because I want to be able to make it through this. And it was one of the best, investments I've ever made. So usually there's some sort of like activity in the morning, whether I'm walking in nature or like I've just really gotten really into just being amongst nature to start my days and set a tone. But then how the day unfolds is different every time, right? Because whether we're working on client work that I have to get together with my team on for Jones and Jones, or like yesterday, I might be recording voiceover for a new campaign that's going to drop in Cineplex theaters this year, right? So like, I mean, the days are different, or if I'm shooting something, then, my team might be working on the Jones and Jones stuff while I'm, you know, off shooting for a couple days or what have you, but still overseeing things. And so, it's the days are very different, but I like that. I would not work well in having my days be predictable. I actually think, the diversity of it is what keeps things interesting for me and keeps things stimulating. Um, Everything's always changing, everything's always shifting.
Jesse, this has been a wonderful chat. Thank you so much for your time. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, man. I'm ready for rapid fire.
All right, your favorite movie?
Yeah, Shawshank Redemption was the first one that came to mind. I just the storyline, hope, yeah, that movie is one that just kind of stands out to me.
If Hollywood were to make a movie based on your life story, who would you want to play you?
People have always said that Nick Cannon and I look alike, so you might as well go for someone that maybe resembles you. I guess that would be kind of, I don't know how that movie would turn out, but hey, we'll see.
Well, apparently he's about to have child number 9, so if
Yeah,
you've got a
I
script
mean,
drafted, he's probably looking for work.
yeah, he's gonna need it now with all these kids, right?
If Hollywood were to make that movie based on your life story, what would you call it?
Keep going, for sure. It's kind of been my line that I roll with. You know, it just, it's kind of symbolic of what I try to live. I, we all have our ups and downs, and we get hit really, really hard with things. Life, can come at you in so many different ways. I just try to navigate that and take the breathers I need. And sometimes it'll knock you out and you need to take a bit of time, but I always try to put one foot forward, each time, even if they're slower steps. And so keep going would probably be the name of that movie.
Your favorite book?
Who Moved My Cheese? Really short read. You could probably get through it in a day. Really defining for me. I read it at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a game changer for me. Really talks about change and how people look at it and navigate it, and it set fire in me at the beginning of the pandemic, and I probably attribute my ability to navigate through it as a business owner and to find the gaps and the new opportunities from reading that book. Who Moved My Cheese?
Your favorite song?
Oh man, favorite song. I can't really come up with one, but I can tell you that during the pandemic and after my mom passed, I started going back to a lot of Bob Marley. And I went back to Bob Marley because it was a lot of the foundational stuff I'd hear growing up as a kid in the home, right? Of Jamaican parents, and obviously Bob being just one of the largest, figures in music globally, but just what his music and message talk about. But if you go into like Bob's catalog, um, there's just so much there that is almost like it just talks about life and experiences. It talks about, systemic oppression. It talks about love. It talks about coming together. It's a real kind of historical take on things. And I think you could listen to a Bob album and kind of just understand civilization and humanity from that. And it also helped me deal with the pain of losing such an important figure in my life. So yeah, that's kind of spiritually just kind of what music was grounding me at the time, and I go back to it. It's kind of like this. It's like education.
The best advice you have ever received?
Follow your gut. Yeah, I think definitely following my gut, and just understanding, like, if it doesn't really move you or feel like how it's supposed to feel, then you shouldn't do it, you know? And hang in there. My mother, one of the last, like, phrases she said to me was hang in there. And I think that, I take those words with me every day, because, like, stuff gets rough, but just hang in.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would you say?
Enjoy the moments, and follow your heart. I really believe that we were put here to enjoy the time we have. Society kind of dictates to us what our enjoyment should be, but we know what moves us, and I think we should follow that. If this is the only run we've got, we should enjoy the jog,
My signature closing question: if you weren't in media, what would you be doing and why?
I'd be hosting retreats, out in nature, out in the country. I would just be connecting with people and allowing them to unplug from, like, their everyday, to just make sure that what they're connected to is really what they feel they should be connected to. And I think you can get there by just kind of unplugging yourself from where you are all the time, to just kind of stepping back and going, is this where I should be? Is this where I want to be? I've always just had this dream of hosting retreats like that, where people can come out and connect with those they've never connected before, different types of people and energy, having dinners together and walks, and just being able to shed the day-to-day weight that kind of gets put on us in society, and feeling ourselves in a light space for a change, and just seeing what comes up from all that. So yeah, that's what I'd be doing. I'm actually looking for a way to do that within my day, within the current structure of things too. So who knows, maybe if we chat again, I might have some news for you.
Jesse, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for chatting today.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this. Thank you. And keep doing this, man. It's a nice format. It allows people to engage. I love how you ask the questions, and it's a beautiful thing that you are able to capture stories and share them with your audience. So thank you for having me.
That's it for today's show. For more episodes, you can go to mediapeople.ca or subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram @VicJunova.